not because they're not good, they're not studying astute, because they never did investigations. I've been here nearly 27 years, and you know that anytime you try to get to the homicide unit, which I worked in for 8 years, you don't come right off the street. You go through burglary or robbery or somewhere else. Somewhere, that's the highest crime in the land. So if my parent is murdered or my family member is murdered, I want that person to be investigated by a detective, no matter how old or how young he is, that has intellect, that's done other crimes other than, this is my first time. And so when we spoke to him about that, he blamed the witnesses. And I was like, Chief, that's disrespectful. And so we were very disappointed in that. And then you take it to maybe several months later, that same detective became a victim of a hostile work environment. And so what happened with him, he winds up going back and forth with his sergeant, because his sergeant would talk about his Haitian accent, would talk about his age, telling him that he should be removed from the unit. And so he challenged his sergeant and told him that I was disrespectful. Sergeant still continued. He actually disrespected him in front of some witnesses of a homicide. He spoke to his lieutenant. The lieutenant refused to do anything about it, and eventually he got kicked out of the unit. So we continued to fight and fight and fight, and it wasn't until he filed a hostile work environment and a city attorney was like, wait a minute, this guy may have a good claim. So they moved him back into the unit. And when they moved him back into the unit, the aggressor still stayed there, and that situation never got dealt with. We have another case where I'd like to show you a picture. This picture here was placed on another African-American detective's desk, a senior detective. So one day he comes to work, this picture's on his desk. I look at this picture, I see a young man with his head cut off, some other type of demonic figure. That is not professional at all. That is disrespectful, it's racist, it brings a charge of anxiety inside me when I see this, when I have 3 boys of my own, and that gentleman has sons of his own. He's investigating the highest crime in the land. African Americans around this country are the most that are being killed, especially in the city of Miami. And we actually talked to the chief about that as well, to see if he could come up with a plan to deal with some of those shootings and the murders that were happening in our neighborhood. He didn't come up with a plan for us. Back in that same meeting in 2018. So our issues are with the hostile work environment. This is poor leadership on the homicide part, and poor leadership on Chief Kalina's part, dealing with just this issue on homicide. I mean, these are the issues that we can bring out because we have direct evidence. There's so many other stories that we can't even bring out right now because people are afraid to talk. So if I bring you a story and I can't corroborate it, then I'm just somebody just here, you know, spinning my wheels. But because I can bring you these 2 stories, these are the 2 stories that we can present to you because they're factual, just like the other ones, but we just don't have the documentation.
Can you talk about in the letter in the packet here? The first thing is no confidence in the chief. Talk about that.
Yes. What happens is when you add everything together, and I haven't had a chance to answer some questions reference to the competency of staff. But when we looked at the totality and the feeling that the membership, a lot of the members had, they were scared to be on the department. They felt that they had no voice, and they weren't happy. They lost confidence on how Chief Kalina and his staff handled problems. And so, as we talked about it, members lost confidence in him, and we decided to put a motion to show a motion for no vote of confidence. And of course, the commissioners and the mayor and the city manager may not necessarily do anything about it, but we want them to understand we're not happy. And like my vice president stated earlier, on numerous occasions we've asked to meet with you, you refuse to meet with us. We've even contacted the commissioners, the mayor's office, since August of 2019. We're in November, and we still have not gotten a call back or opportunity to voice our concerns.
How do you want? What's your end result that you're looking for with everything?
Okay, well, we want to have qualified people promoted. We would like to make sure that.
If you look at the back of the package, we actually came up with a list of resolutions that we had. And some of those resolutions include, not to cut you off, but those resolutions are in the back of the package that deal with some of the members being disciplined for their action, and some people being removed, and then change is made. All we want is change. We don't want embarrassment of our police department. We've been here together over 60 years in law enforcement. Me, 27, 22, 21. This is our department too. Why can't we have our own stake in this? I mean, we want what everybody else wants, an ethical police department with competent leadership.
Can you talk about the hiring of African Americans in terms of coming in on the ground floor? I know the chief is talking about he have a few people here and a few people there that they can point to, but my hearing is that the African Americans coming in are they're limiting the number. What about that? Where are we in terms of the African American hiring process?
I'll speak on that. It's funny you asked that because we just found out that they're going to start hiring on the 18th. But commonly there's a recruitment drive, and we explained to the chief that a lot of black males aren't applying because that was his answer when we asked, like, you know, why are we recruiting black men? He said they're not applying, but they're not applying because there's no recruitment in the black areas, and we've addressed that with the chief on numerous times. When it comes to hiring, when it comes to promotion, nothing has been done. But we asked that he recruit in the black areas, and he's not doing that.
And what we found too was, just taking it from there, is that you only get so long to apply. There's a window of maybe, what, 2 or 3 hours, only because they're accepting only 1,000 applications. So if I don't have my information uploaded, I'm uploading my information now, and he's already had his information uploaded, and he's just filling out the application. The system's gonna get bogged down. It's just gonna take his information. So if I'm not told to do that prior to, no one's in my area speaking at the high school, speaking at the churches and things of that nature, and told to, hey, make sure you have your stuff there so you can be counted in that number, there's gonna be a problem.
I guess for you going forward, obviously it's no secret police battle distrust in these communities for law enforcement.
Correct.
So when you have members of the community who don't trust police officers, now to hear from your organization alleging racism and poor management, among other things, in the department, you know, what do you say to them? Because I've seen, you know, there's this push to get people to cooperate, but now we're hearing, hey, even black officers on the force aren't being treated.
Correct. I would say that we would like the community to get behind us. That's why, if you notice, our name is Miami Community. We spend a lot of time reaching out to community leaders. As you can see, you have Mr. Wilcox from Pulse. We always reach out to the community and make sure we have a good rapport. What we do is we try to keep an open line of communication and try to meet often with the chief to give him an educated perspective. Nothing is hearsay, nothing is we guess. Everything's done through public records requests. When we formulated our strategy, everything was based on the information we requested. We went through it, we researched, and we said, hey, when you see it on paper, you say, hey, we have a lot of problems. And so if we bring it to you to address it, the least you can do is talk to us about it.
And that's disparaging to us to not have our voice heard. And so we get it with the African American community. They're us. And so when we leave here, we hit 79th Street, we're not wearing uniforms. We're dressed down, we're looking just like you are now. So that's what disappoints us too when we think about what's going on in internal affairs. There's numerous cases that passed 180 days that we wanted questions on. We just did a 3-year time period, or 2.5. We did 2017, 2018, and 2019. And over that 3-year time period, over 101 cases went past 180 days. Some of these cases were 300 days, 400 days, 500 days, 600, 700 days. Why is that important? After 180 days, police officers can't get punished anymore. What does that mean to the community? So I come and bring my concern, and you just allow that the time to run. Some of these cases are misconduct. Some of these cases are battery cases. Some of these cases are heinous cases. And so those cases need to be investigated. On our side, officers need to be exonerated, or they need to be punished. So when we see that, and you have a major that allowed that to occur, who reports directly to the chief of police, when we start thinking about leadership here, we're like, Chief, you guys meet, what, weekly, every 2 weeks, every month? That needs to be dealt with, and if you're not dealing with it, you're not the person. If that major's not dealing with it, he's not the person. There's a law in the books that says that if the internal affairs doesn't do an adequate investigation, they can be arrested. The major that was there, all he did was got transported to another area, transferred to another area. He didn't get disciplined for that. He should have been disciplined for that, at least for 101 cases that went past 180 days. That's ridiculous.
And if I can, I mean, just to go back to the incompetency of staff, and I feel like this is important, I had to get this out there. One of the things that is really troubling, I know many of you have read articles on Captain Javier Ortiz, but one of the things that we found that was really insulting to us as a community, when back in 1974, we had something called the consent decree. The United States government found out that the city of Miami was discriminating against African Americans, females, and Latins at the time. Latins were not in the majority at the time. So what they did was they came up with a formula and how they defined each officer. So the city was classified, the members who work for the city, they would classify you as black if you were black male. It didn't include females. If you were Latin, it included anyone who came from Cuban descent, Puerto Rican, Mexican, you were considered Latin. Anglo, the same. Females, regardless of race, were all included in the same category. So the consent decree just ended in 2018. A lot of people don't do that, but it's complex to the community because when you say black, we understand on the department they're talking about black males, but to the outside you're like, hey, you have black females, you got black males. I'm confused. So as a police department, I think we need to do a better job, and that's only because of that federal consent decree. But you had Javier Ortiz, who knew that the federal government stated that, listen, you're having a problem with black males getting promoted, especially the lieutenant position.
Right.
You need to find some way to help increase the opportunity for them, because these past tests seem to have an adverse effect. So they created a new test in 2015, ISO Solutions, and they said, hey, we're gonna go ahead and give this test. Now it's funny, the person who helped promote the test and give the test, Dr. Eon Krause, wrote an article that stated how that type of test has an adverse impact on black males, but they still gave the test. Javier Ortiz took the test and listed himself as a black male, hoping that, or trying to be funny to show that, hey, if I put myself as a black male, I have a better chance of getting promoted. But the problem is that the federal government, when they were looking at the statistics, it throws the statistics off. So who was the #1 black male on the 2015 test? Javier Ortiz. So Javier Ortiz, I believe he was number 13. So when he lists himself as a black male, but when you look at his driver's license, you look at his application for the sergeant exam, for hiring, so it all said Hispanic, white male. But then you take the captain's exam, you take the lieutenant's exam, and you put yourself as a black male.
Black non-Hispanic.
Black non-Hispanic. So now you're skewing the statistics. Now the city and the federal government are trying to find the right way to solve these past discriminations, and here you are doing these things. Also, another thing that we have, the police chief has allowed Javier Ortiz to be the captain over units like Marine Patrol, Mounted, SWAT, special events, and it seems that whenever Javi is over a unit, those units have very limited blacks in them and black males, period.
Got it.
We had one black male that was in SWAT, the only black male, the most senior black male on the SWAT team, the only one. Javier Ortiz kicked him out. We had only 2 blacks in special events. Javier Ortiz kicked them out. We have blacks having problems in motor. So when you look at all these special units that are under Javier Ortiz, he seems to have an adverse effect against blacks. We're not making, this is what people are telling us. We see it. So how can the chief, and you've seen the stories in the past, how can you as the chief know that how this person is, you put him over these high liability units? That shows poor judgment. And when we bring up this topic up to the chief, he won't address it. And if I may have one more, training.
Before you go there, let's stay on Javier Ortiz for
Okay.
a second. So I go and I look at his cases. I look at his internal affairs profile. And so in the last couple of years that he's been here as an officer through captain, he's had 42 complaints, 60 charges. So he had one complaint as a officer, 27 complaints as a sergeant, which led to 40 charges, 6 complaints as a sergeant, Well, as a lieutenant that had 7 charges, 8 complaints as a captain led to 12 charges. Why is that significant? Why is this significant in the state of where we are? If you look at what he does in front of the commission, disrespectful. He had one of our commissioners sitting next to a dog. They're at the commission fighting about whether this guy's a military veteran or something. He is not equipped to be where he's at. We're not saying not make him be a police officer. Put him in communications. Put him in property. Put him somewhere where he doesn't pose this issue to us, because he's over hostage negotiations, SWAT. These are high liability areas that affect you and I, K9. You know, we all know what they did with dogs back in the day in our neighborhoods. So our concern to the chief was like, hey, just move him. And he refuses to move him. So when I think about leadership, I see a poor leader in Javier Ortiz, but also see a poor leader in Chief Kalina, because you're refusing to move him. Not because we have any personal vendetta against anyone. We're just saying, hey, not this guy right here in this specific position right here.
If you
So
can you put into like kind of bullet points what it is that you're looking for and what your priorities are?
Can we do that at the end, please, just so we can get through it? I mean,
Because unfortunately, there's a lot here, and
Yeah,
we're
right.
very limited on
Okay,
time, so we're trying to help you guys get it out here.
Okay, well, one of the things that we would like to do,
Sorry.
and I know you guys are pressed for time,
Yeah.
we would like to conduct a nationwide search for a new police chief. The last police chief was Chief Yanez. When he became chief, I think he went against 35 other candidates, and there was a process, there was an interview, there was a board, and he was selected. Chief Kalina did not undergo a national, they did not go through a national search. There was no internal process to hire him. From what I read in the Miami Herald, there was a brief interview and he became the chief. So we would like to see a national search. We would like to see officers or staff members that are violating officers and treating them unfairly, because we have a process in place to be disciplined for what they're doing. Better ability to promote candidates, use good text that will make it fair for everyone. Those are some of the issues that we would like to see, some of the resolutions that we would like to see.
And let me add something real quick. There's another individual who we'd like to see move. He's in training, Lieutenant J.P. Yeo. This is a gentleman who has a checkered past as well and was fired for his actions, and now he's placed over training, over young, impressionable minds. Spoke to the chief about this gentleman. His record is equally as bad as Captain Ortiz. And if you give me a second, I'd like to go through it for you, just to let you know just why we're disappointed in our leadership. All right. So we have a gentleman who has 16 complaints as an officer, 27 charges, 16 complaints, 31 charges, 32 complaints, 58 charges, and he was relieved of duty and terminated. He was brought back. Not saying don't bring this gentleman back, but not over young, impressionable minds that have to go into the community and have to police our community.
So a lot of this sounds like really inside baseball about management within the department, because for us and people outside, they don't really get who manages units, how that works. So one thing people might say is like, hey, this is an internal police issue. Why go public? Why this?
Wait, hold on.
Go ahead.
I would like to close with this. We would like Chief Kalina and those mentioned to be held responsible for allowing misconduct and discriminatory practices to happen to be under his watch. We have taken our concerns to the City Commission numerous times, asking for requests to speak at monthly committee meetings, to which we received no response. We're requesting that a full investigation be held at the department in regard to a hostile work environment and discriminatory practices. Policy changes to be put into place that will require at least 3 black officers to be interviewed for senior positions. We ask that to bring back the consent decree. The Miami Community Police Benevolent Association has advocated for equality and diversity in the Miami Police Department and in the city of Miami for 74 years, and we will continue to do so in the near future.
I'd like to say something too. Because the statement he just made, talking about it's internal, it's just something internal. It's bigger than just being internal. What happens internal, it happens to, it it impacts on our community.
And
It impacts on our
I would love to get them to
You
say.
can't, you can't, just
Right, right.
because it's internal.
You know it, you know it, it's happening in the streets. It's happening in the streets.
That's it.
No, go ahead.
I think this is what we're gonna hear.
I'll speak on it.
The response from what we're getting is they're saying, hey, this is an internal issue, it should have been handled differently. I would like to hear your
I'll speak
response to
on
that.
it. It's simple. What happens inside affects outside.
That's right.
So if I don't have competent leadership, I don't have competent investigators, I don't have a competent process to complain, how does that affect the community? Because the community doesn't have competent people who are going to solve their cases, who are going to ensure that these detectives are punished, or officers are punished for their actions. So it directly relates to their lives. We're policing them,
If I
you
may,
know.
to sum it up, basically, if you don't, the product that you form inside is what's going to go outside to the community. So if you want to send the best to outside to deal with the community. So when the community receives these officers, they know, hey, we have the best, they really care about us, they're concerned about our problems. And so that's why it's important.
That's right. Let me
Thank
ask you a
you.
question.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
so-
It's now 4:30, so we're done with questions. If you guys want to take them outside and get interview questions with them, you're more than welcome, or stay inside. But we're now done with the group.
I got a question I think needs to be asked.
It's raining outside.
Yeah,
No, it's no problem. Whatever you guys would like to do.
so I got a question for you guys.
I'm just trying to get that.
Well, fuck it, this is all this is all bullshit. It's all all right, so here's my deal. You guys contacted me a while back under Chief Giannis
Okay.
over the missing 11 revolvers out of the property room, out of the destruction of all the rape kits, out of the destruction of all the evidence in these homicide cases that were left in the shipping containers under I-95. So I'd like for you guys to talk a little bit about that, because obviously the real news media doesn't know about any of that. Guns have been missing out of the property room. Drugs have been missing out of the property room. You know, all kinds of stuff has been missing. Homicide evidence on live cases was destroyed because they were left in a shipping container under I-95 for years, right? And there's been very little coverage of it. I'm the only person that's gone in detail and written about any of this, right? And I think that this is something that the greater community should know about as well, because you don't know where them guns might show up.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, sir, if I can, as for the missing guns, I personally work in property. I don't know about the guns because that was before my time. Even the missing, the homicide, but I can tell you my current major, Dana Carr, she's trying to revamp it and make it more organized, make sure homicide kits are being, DNA are being refrigerated, make sure everything is secure. So we're taking a proactive stance in trying to rectify the problem. As for the missing guns and stuff, that was prior to my time being there.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what was your name again?
I'm Al Crespo.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you.
Officer
Okay.
Chief Officer, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.